Yeah, it's fine.
Good afternoon. If everyone could take their seats so we can start. Perfect. Let's start. Welcome to the press conference following the Gimnik meeting. With thanks to our Danish hosts, the High Representative will start debriefing you on the discussions with the ministers, followed by the Danish minister, and then we'll open the floor to your questions. High Representative, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon, and I'm sorry for you that you have to spend your Saturday here in the room without windows. But we had a very long discussion today, a very long day with the EU ministers, and I can already tell you that we didn't cover all the points. So we didn't get to the working methods discussion that we desperately needed, but we will do that in coming months, definitely. So what took the time? Very substantive discussions first on Ukraine. So European Union and all the member states support the diplomatic efforts to achieve peace and the end of Russia's war. But it's clear that Russia is not preparing for peace. It is the opposite. They are preparing for more war. This week, Russia launched its second biggest air attack on Kiev since the war began. The strikes killed many civilians and damaged offices that belong to the European Union and British Council. Russian airstrikes also hit a US factory. So today ministers discussed ways to further increase pressure on Russia to really negotiate, to really come to the negotiation table and sit down and discuss with Ukraine. Sanctions have deprived Russia tens of billions of euros to fund its war, and sanctions work. Ministers discussed the possible building blocks for the next sanction package. Options include secondary sanctions, those backing Russia's war, as well as import bans and tariffs on Russian products. Efforts against shadow fleet ships must also be stepped up. And I've asked the member states for their proposals next week. The goal is to exert maximum pressure on Russia. Of course, new actions would be stronger if matched by our partners, including our transatlantic partners. Today, ministers also discussed the use of Russian frozen assets for Ukraine's defense and reconstruction. It was a very, very good and very substantive discussion. We needed this to hear all the arguments from all the sides, to really debate on the substance matter, and this discussion will continue. Ministers acknowledged the need to address Ukraine's financing gap and to hold Russia accountable for war damages. To achieve this, it is crucial to explore all available avenues while minimizing the potential risks. And I want to stress that financial markets did not react when we froze the assets. Financial markets are calm now as we discuss this, and there are risks, but I'm confident that we are able to mitigate those risks. One thing is absolutely clear where everybody agreed, and this is that given the devastation that Russia is causing in Ukraine and has caused in Ukraine so far, it is unthinkable that Russia will ever see this money again unless it fully compensates Ukraine the damages caused. Second, Middle East. First on Iran. The E3, so the France, Germany and UK, have begun the process of reimposing UN sanctions on Iran. And we had a short discussion on this. The 30-day deadline has started, and this does not mark the end of diplomacy. Tehran still has the chance to fully cooperate with the International Atomic Energy Agency and resume negotiations with the US over its nuclear program. And the ball is in Tehran's court. So I stand ready to support any kind of diplomatic efforts towards finding a solution. On Gaza, Israel's announcement that Gaza City is now a combat zone threatens to worsen the humanitarian situation. If military solution was possible, the war would already be over. Gaza needs less war, not more war, and on the West Bank, Israel's decision to advance its West Bank settlements is illegal and undermines the two-state solution. So, of course, we discussed what more can we do. We have been very active in contact with Israelis trying to improve the humanitarian situation on the ground, but of course more needs to be done. Many EU member states have taken measures against Israel, not against Israel, but against the Israeli government. And there is a very important distinction to be made. It's not against Israel, but actually the actions of Israeli government that are going on, including sanctioning the ministers, suspending arms exports. This is what the EU member states have done. So on the European Union side, there is no sugarcoating to the reality where we are. It was clear that today a broad majority of member states gave more ideas. What more can we do to really improve the situation? We will explore those ideas further. But it's clear that member states disagree on how to get Israeli government to change course. The options are clear and remain on the table. We have presented an option paper, but the problem is that not all EU member states are on board. But again, we had a very good discussion on different options, and we will continue to try to find ways to explore what can we do. And finally, on the issue of denying visas to Palestinian authorities so that they can't participate in the United Nations General Assembly. In the light of the existing agreements between the UN and its host state, we all urge for this decision to be reconsidered, considering the international law and the way the United Nations has been built up. So this is the agreement that we all had on this topic. Thank you very much. And now over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Kaya. When it comes to foreign policy, there's more than enough for us to tackle. And it's absolutely no secret, and that remains after today's meeting, that we are 27 member states, and we do not always agree on everything. But as I mentioned when I arrived this morning, the informal Gimnik setting provides the, I would say, perfect atmosphere for constructive and honest discussions on how we can deliver on our promised pledges, how we can move forward, how we can strike compromise between ourselves. And I really want to thank my colleagues for the truly open, dynamic and non-scripted discussion we have had today. And as Kaya mentioned, we had core discussions on two of the major challenges facing the European Union, Russia's illegal war against Ukraine and the humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza. The European Union's most important task right now is to maintain support for Ukraine and increase the pressure on Russia. I think everybody agrees that it's very clear that Putin is trying to buy time and divert attention from the massive and brutal attacks on Ukraine. He must not succeed. And the only language he understands is that of hard pressure. And I want to thank my colleagues for the very constructive talks we have had on how we can move forward with the 19th sanction package. We need to bring Ukraine in a position of strength, and therefore we need to increase pressure together through harder sanctions. And of course, transatlantic cooperation will make the effect of the sanctions even stronger. The other main topic we discussed today is the current humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza. Daily horrific violence continues, and just last week the UN declared famine in Gaza. Israel's actions go far beyond act of self-defense, and we have repeatedly urged Israel to stop the war and change her course. I have today urged EU member states to increase the pressure on Israel to change course, and I think we all share the concern about the humanitarian situation, and we all want the war in Gaza to end and the hostages to be released. As one concrete way to increase pressure, Denmark supports the suspension of the trade chapter in the association agreement with Israel. We will continue to work to secure the necessary support among the EU countries to do so. We must at the same time work hard to relieve the immense humanitarian suffering in Gaza. That's why we have called for Israel to reopen the medical corridor from Gaza to East Jerusalem, and offered our support to treat patients from Gaza. Many of my colleagues echoed that approach. So we must increase our efforts. We must turn our words into action. I really appreciate the very open and frank discussions we have had today, and I, as I always do, look much forward to seeing all my colleagues again at our next Council meeting. And that, as I mentioned in the beginning, the strength of the EU is the fact that we are able to find common ground. And now, maybe more than ever, it is crucial to stand united and speak with one voice in a world of division, and perhaps even more important, to change these words into action. Thank you.
Thank you. We open the floor to the questions. Please specify the principal to whom you address your questions. And we will start second row. Andrea, a mic for the lady. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is Andrea Palashana from Bloomberg. Hi, Rep. I want to ask you, yesterday morning you mentioned that in terms of sanctions against Russia, what would hurt the most would be more sanctions against oil and gas, and as well as secondary sanctions. After a day of discussions, do you feel like we're any closer to achieving some of those measures in the next package?
Thank you. The work is ongoing. There were a lot of other ideas also put on the table. For example, financing, institutions, and also the way, our UK colleagues were mentioning also the things that they have done, and we can look into those possibilities. Crypto is one thing, although I don't know how it is doable in practice, but anyway, we are really exploring all the options and preparing. So next week we agreed that the ministers will propose concrete matters also for next week, so that we can move with this. But I think, Lars, you can echo that we had a very, very good discussion on really what more could be there. Of course, in the end, the question is where we find agreement with everybody.
I definitely can echo that, and I think the most important takeaway is actually that we share the analysis that Putin is buying, time. So we need to step up. We need to introduce more sanctions to put pressure on him and to give Ukraine a position of strength. And then we have to work out the details, but I think the general atmosphere in the room was that we should move on and we should do it as fast as possible.
Thank you. Next question, move over there. Yes.
Thank you. Andrew Gray from Reuters. Two quick questions. On the Middle East, is it not the case that you're moving further apart on Gaza? We now have more countries, including Denmark, specifically calling for the suspension of the free trade part of the association agreement. So in a sense, it's not just, as you said this morning, High Representative, that you're divided. Actually, the divisions are growing and the differences are growing. You're growing further apart. And on frozen assets, the Belgian Foreign Minister was very clear this morning. He said, you can't kill the goose that lays the golden eggs. And he said he's also not open to even looking at riskier investments in terms of using the windfall profits. So isn't it the case that this is really a non-starter for now? Thank you.
Thank you. If the majority is growing, then the division is not getting bigger, but it's actually getting smaller because the majority is growing. So it depends how you look at it. But it is true that we still don't have an agreement on those measures. Like I said, there's no sugarcoating in the way it is. Today we had a very frank discussion on, really asking those countries who are not in favor of one or the other measure, okay, but what could be there then? What could be then the measure if we all agree, the diagnosis that the situation is grave? Then the question for us is, what do we do about this? And there we have a growing majority on different topics, but we don't have yet the necessary votes together. On the frozen assets, like I said, we had a very frank and open discussion. So I wanted to frame the discussion so that it's not a yes or no issue. Because we have to think ahead to also have an exit strategy. We can't possibly imagine, and by the way, there is a European Council conclusion that those assets remain frozen until Russia has paid for its damages. So we can't possibly imagine that those assets are given back unless they pay for the damages. We don't see them paying for the damages. So we need to have an exit strategy so that how do we go about this? And like I said, there are risks, of course, what also Belgium was raising, and many others as well. So let's work on the mitigation of those risks, how we can put really the solution together for the day after. Because if there comes a peace agreement, then there is also this question, what happens with those assets? And we need to have the answer, considering that we are a European Union that also respects the rule of law and everything. We have to have those rules in place, in addition to the international law that is already saying that those who are causing the damages should pay for the damages that they have caused. And the damages caused in Ukraine are done by Russia, not by European countries.
We go to the first row. The lady here, please.
Thank you. My name is Celine. I'm from the Danish Broadcasting Corporation. My question is for the High Representative. Can you point to one concrete step regarding Israel that the countries actually agreed on today? And after today's meeting, do you expect a more unified EU putting pressure on Israel and taking concrete steps?
Thank you. First, we had an informal council, so that means that we actually don't adopt decisions here, but we really have the political debates, where is the room. So no decisions today. We were just, testing where we can move, especially those countries who have been against. Are they willing to move on other topics, on other measures that we can do? So that was the situation.
We'll stay on the first row. The gentleman, please.
Hi, my name is Michael from Danish TV2. A question for you, High Representative. You said this morning that you're not very optimistic regarding coming to a conclusion among the countries. Would you say that it's time to deal with the rule of consensus within the EU regarding foreign policy to make sure that the EU going forward can make decisions and standing on marks regarding Israel, for example?
Yes, that's why I wanted to have the point on the agenda today about the working methods, to really discuss how we can deliver. Because my personal feeling is that, the people of Europe are also losing trust in Europe if we are not able to deliver on the decisions. So this is really time to look in the mirror and say, what more can we do to be more effective? But unfortunately, the Middle East, the Ukraine discussion took all our time, and I really didn't want to limit the ministers this time because it was important that we had the frozen assets discussion and very open and frank. But what we agreed is that I will have these discussions in a smaller groups of member states regarding the working methods, so that really how we can go further, not theoretically, but really practically on really concrete items and within the limits of the treaties, of course.
We continue here, and then we go in the back, please, to lady there. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much. Rosie Birchard for DW. Foreign Minister, first of all, you have laid out a menu of options with regards to pressuring the Israeli government. You talked about this, the trade chapter. How do you respond when the Israeli government says any such measures only serve to strengthen Hamas? And High Representative, you pointed to some measures that individual member states have taken, but ultimately you have to go out in the world and be the diplomatic face representing the European Union. It's been more than a month since the proposal to bar Israeli startups from accessing some EU research funds under the Horizon Europe programme. In that proposal, the European Commission said Israel is violating human rights in Gaza and breaching EU cooperation rules, but we know that's stuck in diplomatic deadlock. So how is that stalled action impacting your diplomacy and your credibility? And do you have a message to those big countries, including the likes of Germany, that are not in favour of EU-level cooperation? Thank you.
Thank you. If you ask personally how that feels, that I'm the face that is to blame, that we don't have a decision, then it's hard. It's very hard. But the way a European Union works is that not the High Representative is making the decisions, but 27 have to come to an agreement. And that's why I'm working so hard to get that agreement, to really address the sensitivities that one member state or the other has to find a compromise to deliver. And that's why, again, coming to the previous question, I really want to have the discussion also about the working methods to be more effective, to be able to deliver. Because it's true that I have to be responsible. I'm the face that has to then also comment these things, and it's hard. Of course, what we can't overlook is that we are actually very active on this file. Like we are in constant contact with the Israelis, really putting the pressure on them, really, and we have achieved also, if we take the humanitarian understanding that we have, there are more trucks getting in to Gaza with humanitarian aid. There are more border crossings opened than before. There are vital reparations of critical infrastructure. There are fuel being provided. There are things that are improved, but it's not enough. I totally agree with you. So also, we are the biggest providers of support to Palestinian Authority. We are the ones keeping the two-state solution alive. We are the ones who are the biggest providers of humanitarian support to Gaza people. But of course, this is what we see in the news. It's frustrating that we can't do more. We are discussing, and I can feel all the ministers feel the pain that we want to do more to help those people.
Well, I just to echo what you just said there. I think it is important that we challenge the false narratives. And I mean, we have absolutely no intention to strengthen Hamas, quite the opposite. But it is too black and white if, steps putting pressure on Israel to ensure that they fulfill their obligations is interpreted as now we are strengthening Hamas. We have to confront these false narratives, and I think perhaps that's one of the explanations why we haven't moved yet, because it's very polarized. Israel is right now undermining the two-state solution, and taking action against that is not strengthening Hamas. You could argue the opposite. Because if we do not intervene, if we do not have any actions, then we give room to the most extremist environments at both sides of the conflict. So that's why we have been arguing that we should move. And I am pleased, even though we haven't reached any agreement, we don't have a qualified majority yet, but things are moving. And even though we haven't had the time for this debate in principle about working methods, we had it as a part of this discussion.
That's true.
Because the most sophisticated tools, for that we need consensus. But we have to work and think more innovative of what could be the next best solutions. For instance, we want to put a ban on import from the occupied territories. That's probably not doable. But then we could put heavy tariff on import, and we could do that by a qualified majority. And we are going to explore all these possibilities in the lead up to the next FACT meeting.
Thank you. We have time for two more quick ones. We'll take the lady in the back, and then we'll come back to the... Angela, please. Yes.
Hi, Angela Skujins from TVP World, Poland's public broadcaster. A question for you, High Representative. You mentioned that all member states support diplomatic efforts to achieve peace in Ukraine, but this morning, before the meeting kicked off, Hungary's foreign minister wrote on X. He described that the talks would be a pro-war tsunami for Ukraine and that it would revolve around Ukraine's EU accession bid and military support. I'm curious, did he change his tune? What was the flavour in the room from the Hungarian foreign minister? And another question on frozen Russian assets. You said that it was discussed today. What did the discussion resemble regarding burden sharing and the legal repercussions? Is this a viable option? Is that the feeling that you're getting from the member states as a substantive option? Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Of course, we don't comment on what one or the other member state said in the room, but we had good, constructive discussions, also very open and very critical at the time. So not following what one or the other member states are saying in their doorstep comments, so don't really know. But I can say in the room we had very open and frank discussions. On the frozen assets, yes, one of the questions was about the burden sharing of risk. And there the member states were voicing that, of course, we are in solidarity with Belgium. So they are not left alone with the risks. So let's work on mitigation of those risks.
We'll move there to Thomas, please.
Thanks a lot for the question. Thomas Kutschka with Frankfurter Allgemeine Zeitung. My question is to you, HRVP. It's actually two follow-ups to what you said on the frozen assets. When you say it's unthinkable that Russia ever sees these immobilized assets again if they do not compensate for the damage done during the war, could you please explain the thinking behind it? Because it's very well possible that in peace negotiations Ukraine renounces any reparations if it gets in return more control over their territory. So it's clearly a chip in the negotiations. So why would you exclude beforehand that any such deal could be done? That's the first question. The second question is this debate really about what you say exit strategy or the end game? So what happens in peace negotiations with Russia? Because a number of foreign ministers this morning explicitly said they wanted to use the money to fund Ukraine next year. Mm-hmm. And they pointed to the extensive financing needs and gaps. So are we not talking about something that is to happen before any talks with Putin might take place? Thank you.
Thank you. On your first question, there is a European Council decision that states that the assets remain frozen until Russia has paid reparations. That is the basis. So these are frozen by European Union. So, of course, unless this European Council decision is changed, then this is the point. So this is decision by all 27 member states, and that is the basis for our discussions, really. And now to our other question. Yes, it is true that many member states raised this issue that Ukraine's funding gap is enormous, and we need to find the funding now. But it's also clear the political reality that Belgium and many other countries are not willing to discuss it now in this. But everybody agrees still that Russia should pay for the damages, not our taxpayers. So that's why I'm stressing on the exit strategy, to be politically realistic, to work to find a solution there, because there is the basis where everybody agrees.
Thank you. We'll take the very last one, since there is one last hand, and then we will have to close it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the extra time. Mattia Bagnoli, ANSA, the National Italian News Agency. High Rep, one question for you, one question for the Minister on the same topic of the working methods. I don't want you to preempt the discussion, but what would you like to get out of your colleagues? And bear in mind that you were a Prime Minister, so you very well know what it means for a country to renounce its sovereign decisions on very delicate issues like the foreign and security policy. And you, if it comes to the point, very unlikely, where there is a vote, would Denmark be ready to renounce and vote against the veto, basically the veto power that everyone has in the Council? Because let's face it, to revoke unanimity, you need unanimity.
Yes, thank you. I don't want to preempt the discussions, of course, but the frame should be the treaties. Yes, coming from a country, from a small country that for 50 years did not have a voice, we really cherish the equal voice that we have around the table as Estonia, as in my previous capacity. Now, also, majority of member states have been very constructive because, to try to find compromises in the spirit of compromise. Okay, I have a problem with this issue, and then others will propose, okay, but maybe, your problems can be mitigated by this solution. And I think this is the way it should be. If there is a risk that you are losing your voice, then you're more also prone to compromise, because you want your voice to be taken into account. So, of course, it's a very complicated issue, but I think it's an issue of credibility of European Union. We are in this pivotal moment where our citizens are losing maybe trust in European Union because we can't deliver. So it is a broader issue. It's just not a question of one decision or the other. It's a broader issue whether European Union as such is able to deliver, whether we are relevant also on the global sphere.
Well, I agree. I have served as Prime Minister myself, and I think we must record that this is, and not much is, black and white. I mean, but we need to discuss how we can be more efficient. And for instance, and that's why we have participated in this QMV friendship group chaired by Germany, because you could argue, for instance, that we need consensus in order to take a very principled position and introduce new tools, sanctions, for instance. But should we then stick to consensus when we develop that instrument? Could you argue that if we should prolong sanctions, do we then need unanimity at each position? I mean, so there are nuances, and therefore, without predicting what will be the outcome of this, we as a country are eager to participate in this, because it goes without saying that right now it is the slowest ship in the convoy who defined the speed, and we should avoid a situation where, and we have seen that, where in some occasion one country is, the barrier for Europe to respond, and thereby we do not flex the muscles in the way we could, and that is undermining our predictability around the globe, and I think it also creates problems within our own societies. So that's why I really much welcome the High Rep's idea of this debate, as I welcome the debate about the frozen asset. I mean, we haven't had such a substantive discussions about this, which also shows that this is not black and white. I mean, until now it has been, should we confiscate or should we not confiscate? I mean, and there are nuances. As it has been stated, there's no way they will see the money again. I mean, we're talking about plus 200 million, and I think the registered claims so far is talking about the damages is more than 500 billion. So, I mean, if they pay their bill, I mean, they need more money that we have frozen. But could we give these frozen assets more leverage? That's the discussion, and I really appreciate that we have had such an honest debate today, even though, and it goes without saying, because we're an informal meeting, we haven't drawn any concrete conclusions yet.
Thank you, Minister. This brings this press conference to an end. Have a nice evening and safe flight to Brussels. Thank you very much.
Thank you.